So good evening and welcome to the Active Transportation and Trails Plan Amendment public meeting. My name is Mike Garcia and I will be your facilitator this evening. I want to get a few housekeeping things out of the way first before we get started. So for those who are not familiar with Teams, we'll go over how to raise and lower your hand and ask questions at the conclusion of the presentation. Sometimes Teams does look different for others, but we can help troubleshoot on the side. So if you want to use the chat, we can help you there if need be. For this meeting, the chat feature is enabled. Please use it if you would like to have your question answered that way. Comments will be taken, but they will not be addressed from the chat. If a term is not clear, please note the term and we will try to address it in a timely manner during the presentation. You can type your questions into the chat at any time. If you do, please try to note where in the presentation you are asking your question if you can. Sandy, next slide, please. Okay. I want to draw your attention to the Title VI notice. The Fairfax County Department of Transportation operates programs and services without regard to race, color, and national origin in accordance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. Further information about Title VI is posted online at fairfaxcounty.gov/connector/Title VI. Sandy, next slide, please. All right. So this is the first of two public meetings, with the other virtual meeting being held tomorrow, September 4th at noon. The objective of this meeting is to go over the Active Transportation and Trails Plan overview and purpose, as well as set expectations, obtain feedback, and address questions. Please hold your questions in terms of verbal questions. We will take those at the end as well, but again, you can type them into the chat as you need be. So again, my name is Mike Garcia. I am the facilitator of this particular meeting tonight. I'm joined by Nicole Winans, who will actually be our presenter as well, and Sandy Clanford, who's also will be assisting. Nicole and Sandy are both with the Active Transportation section of the Fairfax County Department of Transportation. With that, I'd like to go ahead and get started. Nicole, you can take the floor.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Next slide, please. All right, you're already there. Before we dive in, let's define a key term you'll hear throughout this presentation, which is active transportation. So active transportation refers to all forms of non-motorized travel, whether for recreation or getting from point A to point B. This includes walking, biking, rolling, and also electric micromobility devices like e-scooters, e-bikes, and electric skateboards. So, why is Fairfax County planning for active transportation? Including these facilities in the comprehensive plan ensures that future infrastructure supports all types of road users and improves multimodal access to both daily destinations and recreational amenities. Having a clear understanding of where sidewalks, bikeways, trails, and open space connections are needed helps streamline project design and implementation for the county, the state, and private developers. Importantly, mapping out a designated active transportation and trails network also unlocks state and federal funding opportunities. It's important to note that this plan is aspirational and over-inclusive, looking out over the next 30 years. There's currently no dedicated funding for implementation, so that's important to note. But when funding does become available, the plan will serve as a flexible guide to meet evolving community needs. Next slide, please. The Active Transportation and Trails Plan was developed as part of the Active Fairfax Transportation Plan study, which launched in 2020 and is wrapping up later this year. This study had three main goals: streamline the trail and bikeway recommendations from the Countywide Trails Plan and the Bicycle Master Plan, which will be combined into one plan as part of this effort. Identify opportunities for new connections and any potential environmental or cultural resource concerns. And third, update facility recommendations to ensure the network supports all ages and abilities. In 2021, we held the first round of community engagement. We asked for your vision for active transportation in Fairfax County and what barriers you face currently. The main concern included a lack of connectivity and a strong desire for more sidewalks, bikeways, trails, and amenities like lighting, shade, trees, and signage. Safety was another key theme, especially the need for better crossings, traffic calming, as well as education and enforcement for all road users. Your feedback helped shape both the network updates and the Active Transportation Toolkit and informed goals for the broader Plan Forward update to the transportation element, which is currently ongoing. In 2024, we shared the first draft of this plan with the public and asked for feedback on specific facility recommendations, network gaps, and overall impressions. We also heard concerns about the current condition of sidewalks, bikeways, and trails across the county. Overall, there was broad public support for the proposed plan as illustrated here. However, many of you voiced concerns about the safety of shared roads and the impacts of vehicle speeding on active transportation users. Based on that feedback, the draft plan was updated to include revisions to the network map and default facility types to better accommodate users of all ages and abilities. Clear guidance on which roads are appropriate for sharing and how to design those spaces safely. Reports of infrastructure safety concerns were passed along to the appropriate agencies for follow-up. And non-infrastructure feedback like policy ideas were used to shape programmatic recommendations as part of the active Fairfax study. All right, let's take a look at the proposed active transportation and trails plan. The plan includes a visionary network map, supporting map nodes, and a facility selection guide based on land use and road context. On the map, bold lines show regional routes that connect activity centers on neighboring jurisdictions. Non-bold lines indicate local routes linking neighborhoods and community destinations. The map does not indicate location of existing facilities or which side of the road a facility should be located on, as this needs to be determined at implementation. The map notes and facility selection guidance provide information on need for sidewalks, crosswalks, supporting amenities, and if a two-way bicycle facility is needed on one side of the road or both sides. The orange lines highlight key routes to special areas. These include mixed-use, commercial, institutional, and industrial zones. Each special area has its own detailed planning document, which is referenced by a number on this map. In these special areas, the most common facility is the urban trail, a wide multi-use trail with concrete or paver surfaces, lighting, benches, trees, and landscaping to create a pleasant and accessible experience. In denser zones, cycle tracks are preferable. These are protected bike lanes to provide comfortable separated spaces for cyclists and pedestrians. Cycle tracks are typically paired with enhanced sidewalks, which are wider than standard sidewalks and feature amenities like shade trees, lighting, and seating. These can use concrete and accessible friendly pavers or both. Now let's talk about the purple lines, which are multi-use trails along roads. These trails connect activity centers, usually along major roads, providing a safe, comfortable, and accessible route for walking, biking, and rolling. These trails are typically paved and include a wide grass strip to separate trail users from vehicles. Along high traffic or wide roads, trails may be needed on both sides. However, not every road needs a trail. Residential streets have low vehicular volumes and travel speeds and serve as key connectors to the trail network and transit stops along main roads, and also connect the trail network to neighborhood destinations like schools and parks. On residential connector streets, we recommend sidewalks on both sides. In lower density areas, sidewalks could be designed with asphalt to preserve a more rural or park-like aesthetic. Where space allows, bike lanes, with or without buffers, can accommodate bicyclists and e-scooter users. The goal is to reallocate existing space, not to widen roads. On narrow roads without space for bike lanes, a neighborhood greenway design can enhance safety for shared use of bikes and vehicles. On the quietest streets, such as cul-de-sacs, pedestrian-first street designs enhance safety and livability. These are shared spaces where all users can comfortably coexist. We're currently testing this approach through a pilot project in Springfield to inform future state-maintained street designs. The network also includes trails to open space, which is undeveloped land that is neither parkland nor roadside. These trails connect neighborhoods to each other or to destinations like transit stops, schools, and shopping areas. They're also vital for free recreation and connecting residents with nature. Please note that the green lines on the map are conceptual, and trail feasibility, viability, alignment, width, and surface type will need to further study. Most of these trails will be paved to ensure accessibility, but in some cases, a natural surface trail is more appropriate or a low-cost interim solution. Boardwalks are typically used when crossing wetlands or sensitive areas, though they can present maintenance challenges. The brown lines represent stream valley trails, regulated under the Parks and Recreation element in the policy plan. Their main purpose is environmental preservation. Trails are only included where human access is appropriate and feasible. Where trails can be provided, natural surface trails are generally preferred. However, in some cases, paved trails or boardwalks may be used. Final decision on Stream Valley Trail feasibility, viability, alignment, width, and surface type are made by the Fairfax County Park Authority based on site condition and community need. As mentioned earlier, this plan is a visionary document and no funding is currently allocated for implementation. However, the active Fairfax study will identify key projects that could move forward once funding becomes available. From funding to completion, project timelines typically range from 3 to 5 years. To support implementation, we developed the Active Transportation Toolkit, a companion resource filled with guidance for planners, engineers, policymakers, and the interested public. Please note the toolkit is not part of the comprehensive plan itself. It will be referenced by name only. The effort also involves several amendments to the transportation element of the policy plan. Updating Appendix 3 to reflect the new plan name and terminologies. Removing the outdated bicycle master plan from Appendix 5, and updating special area plans to reference the new active transportation and trails plan. Now we'd love to hear from you. How well does this plan reflect your needs and priorities? You can share your input by taking our community survey or by leaving a voicemail at 703-890-5898 using project code 11851. The survey is available at www.fairfaxcounty.gov/planning-development/plan-amendments/active-Fairfax. Feedback will be accepted until September 19, 2025. And going back to Mike.
All right. Thank you, Nicole, for that. So this is the question and hopefully answer part of this presentation. So if you have any comments, obviously, please feel free to leave them in the chat. If you are on the computer, which I believe most of you are, and you wish to speak, you can raise your hand. You can see that there's kind of an image that shows you how to do it. It should be at the top of your bar. If you're on the phone and you want to talk, you can push *5 and it'll raise your hand, and we'll see it on the device over here, and we can kind of unmute you. Everyone's microphone is currently disabled, so what we're going to do is, as I see the hands come up, I will go ahead and enable your microphone and just call your name. I apologize if I get your name wrong. It's not meaning to offend, it's just an accident sometimes. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and enable the first person. Let me see here. Okay, Jeff Parnes, your microphone is enabled. If you want to unmute yourself, because I cannot unmute people, then you can ask your question. Jeff Parnes, if you want, for unmuting, it should be at the top of your window. And if you're unable to mute, if you can put something in the chat.
I've unmuted myself. Can you hear me now?
I can. We can hear you. You're good.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So my name is Jeff Parnes. I'm a bicyclist. My kids are bicyclists, and we bike to the Air and Space Museum Museum along the Air and Space Museum Parkway, which has signage to say it's a bike route. But when we cross over Route 28 from the west to the Air and Space Museum itself, there are no indications that pedestrians and bicyclists are crossing the Route 28 bridge. In most other places, for example, when the Fairfax County Parkway crosses the toll road, the walkways are marked with pedestrian, bicyclists may cross this road. In this case, we're crossing what many people do at speed, which is 40, 50 miles an hour, and it's a bike path, but there's no indication that there's a pedestrian bike route along there for the drivers of vehicles to take into consideration that there might be people on their bikes in front of them. And it seems to me that if you've got a county path that's labeled and shows it's a bike route, that there ought to be some sort of signage for the motorists to tell them to look out for the people who are doing active transportation. It just seems unsafe. I know I do that to buy tickets. My kids would jog, pushing my grandson in their thing, and they'd go to the Air and Space Museum after jogging to the museum with my grandson in a stroller. You ought to have a marking to make that route safer than it is now, especially since it's a marked route by the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll go ahead and disable your microphone and put you back in the queue. And I'll lower your hand for you. Okay, next up is Math K. Let's see here. Your microphone is now enabled, so you can unmute yourself. And I see things coming in the chat, and we'll get to those too in just a moment. So Math K, your hand is up and your microphone is enabled, so you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Again, if you're having issues with unmuting yourself, you can put it in the chat. We can try to do something else to help you out, but we can't unmute you. So I'll give that a moment to see if they can come off mute. Nicole, in the meantime, we have a question. What were the objectives for integrating the bicycle and trails plan in one plan?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So integrating them into one plan helps with streamlining implementation. So having two plans in the past has led to sometimes just one plan being looked at and not the other. So there was sometimes implementation challenges by having two documents to reference. So having a one-stop shop where a developer or a public planner could go to see what active transportation and trail facilities are recommended definitely ensures that implementation is in line with the comprehensive planning guidance.
Okay. Thank you. I'll mark the questions as read with a thumbs up, just so everybody knows. Math K, are you able to unmute yourself? If not, I'm just going to move on to the next person. We can come back. Okay. Come back. I'm just going to disable the microphone for right now. Kevin O'Brien, I'm going to enable your microphone. And so you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Awesome. Hi, y'all. My question, I know you underscored it a couple times in the presentation that there's no current funding for this for these projects or for implementation, but generally understand that concept. What this is doing is sort of shifting the underlying plan for the county writ large. My question is, how, say this is passed tomorrow or whatever timeline the plan is adopted, right, and the county's comprehensive plan is now amended with this new line work, with this new plan. How quickly do you envision projects that maybe aren't being led by FCDOT? Maybe it's a developers doing a project, or something is being rezoned, something is being reworked, and so by law you typically have to go back to look at the comp plan, see what it's in the comp plan, what kind of improvements you might have to make. How quickly do you anticipate some of what you've worked on becoming sort of operative by that means? Or do you anticipate there being a sort of a long lag where, well, the projects that are in the works now, that started a year ago or in the planning phase as we speak, they sort of get grandfathered in, so they won't have to make the kinds of investments or the kinds of changes that this new plan now envisions? because I think that if the answer to that is no, we anticipate like this is now the plan. If you've got something going on, we're going to hold you to this new higher standard. Then that makes me feel really great. If we're looking at maybe a 2 or 3 or 4 years down the line before the sort of plan really starts to have bite into projects, I do think like that gives me a little bit more concern that this is going to be a long time coming. I hope that was a clear-ish question.
It was clear. Nicole, do you want to try to take a moment to try to answer that question? I can chime in too if need be.
Sure. So this is a long-range plan, and we want to make sure to have a up-to-date comprehensive plan in the books that if and when development occurs, that we have that we get what we envision for the community in place. So we're already looking at the draft plan as developments come in to negotiate with developers. This is the up and coming guidance to make sure that we meet the needs of all users. It's actually also not in all cases that different from the current comprehensive planning guidance, because we have a very strong trails plan that has been on the books for a very long time, since the 1970s. And in many cases, we can point at the current comprehensive planning guidance in order to negotiate the facility that is the best fit for that location. But once it's adopted, developments come in all over the county, particularly near transit areas where we have strong development pressure. And so that's an opportunity to get those areas address the walkability and bikeability there first. But then we also have public projects. So usually we fund our capital projects through the Transportation Priorities Plan, which is the bond measure that is being voted on every 6 years. We don't have one coming up shortly where we can add a lot of projects, but when we can, when the cycle reaches a point where we can add a lot of new projects, this is where we're looking to. And as I mentioned in the presentation, as part of the Active Fairfax study, we're developing a list of the key priority projects, which are larger in scale, that we are proposing as part of the process. And of course, there's a public engagement involved. There's a whole community process where we make a shared review of proposed projects. But that's something to keep in mind, that we have that ability and we have a funding source. It's not dedicated, so that's why we use the term dedicated funding. We do have funding for projects in the future, but we have to balance all the other transportation needs, such as transit and vehicular traffic as well. And then VDOT, the Virginia Department of Transportation, has also their own projects that they move forward. For example, the 66 Parallel Trail was built by VDOT for the most part because there was a trail along 66 in the current comprehensive plan. And the same is true for the 495 trail, which is currently being built in the northern part of the county, because VDOT is required to consider at least implementation of our comprehensive planning guidance. So that's why it's really important along the highways to have recommendations as well.
All right. That's pretty thorough. Thanks, Nicole. Okay. Next up is Jeff Galger. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Your microphone's enabled. You can unmute yourself. And that's Jeff Galger. And again, if you are having issue, oh, there we go.
Oh, you can hear me? Okay. Yeah, I was found it. Yeah, so I guess I have a pretty basic question. The old bicycle master plan seemed to be something that was looked at when a road came up for repaving, and it was looked at to see if maybe a bike lane should be striped on the road. Is that the same process here? Is that what will happen? And when you're going through the visionary part of it, it looked like there's several options for any given road. Do you know in advance which option is recommended for a given road, like a side trail versus a bike lane, for example?
Cool.
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you see a purple line along the road, that is a clear indication that this is part of the trail network, and a trail, either on one side or both sides, should be the ultimate facility. It is possible that as part of the state's repaving efforts, so that they repave the road, all the striping comes off. Those roads are all considered for potential bike lanes. That's regulated actually by the policy plan in the comprehensive plan that directs staff to evaluate all roadways that are being repaved for potential bicycle or striping improvements. That also includes crosswalks or parking lanes or other striping improvements that support active transportation users and general road safety. So in this proposed plan, you won't see actual recommendations for specific bicycle facility. But if you look in the lower left corner, there's the facility selection toolkit. So the toolkit provides some guidance on where bike lanes should be considered as a ultimate facility. So in those cases where the bike lane can be provided, a trail may not be necessary.
Okay. I'm going to pick one off the chat real quick and come back to the people raising their hands because it's related to the repaving. So the question is, what coordination, if any, is possible or planned with VDOT as they move through their repaving schedule? Thinking in particular of the Huntington Road Diet Bike Lanes initiative that was not part of VDOT's current repaving of that area.
So we're closely coordinating with VDOT on implementation. I should mention that all the roads are owned and maintained by VDOT. So Fairfax County can make changes to the road using our own funds or federal funds or state funds, but under VDOT permit. So VDOT is reviewing all proposals, all projects, development proposals have to go through a VDOT review. So we definitely have to coordinate very closely to make sure it meets the VDOT standards as well as operational goals that VDOT follows. So in Huntington, so that went through the repaving process. So it was identified as a potential road diet as part of the repaving process. So the road was reviewed and considered for adding bike lanes and converting travel lanes to bike lanes. And in the end, it did not. It required additional analysis that was not possible as part of the repaving program because the repaving program is very fast, so a very quick turnaround. So it's better suited as a potential capital project.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, E, that's all I have. Just the letter E. Your microphone is enabled. You can unmute yourself.
Yeah, thanks. This is Bruce Wright. I was having problems, one, getting in, and two, typing my name into the field. So I missed the first part. I missed the entire presentation. And so will that be available online?
It will. So it's being recorded, and then we'll also have a repeat tomorrow at the lunchtime hour for those who it's more convenient for.
What about the slides? Are they going to be online?
They will be posted. They'll be posted as well.
Okay, great. Two quick questions or comments. One, I see that the legend has changed significantly so that what used to be, it seems like it was major regional routes is now trails along roads. And then for some roads, and looking at the map at the very top, Seneca Road has a slightly different symbol. It's smaller dashed lines looks like the same color as the trails along roads, and I don't see that in the legend. And so that's the question is, what is that facility?
So the bolded lines, the thicker lines, no matter which color, are the regional routes. So they look a little bit different, but the regional designation doesn't specify a specific facility type. It just recognizes the regional importance of that connection and qualifies that route for specific dedicated funding, particularly on the federal level for regional trails or regional active transportation facilities. So the skinnier lines are the purple ones are trails along roads, but they may have more of a local function.
Well, I don't get it. I thought you said that the trails along roads were trails, but that's not the case. So that's still similar to what it was before in that it depends on the context. Is that correct?
Yes, so any purple line on the map, no matter if it's thick or thin, is a trail, either one or two trails, or one on each side, depending on the how busy and wide the road is. But the regional designation doesn't change the facility recommendation. So that's where you would refer to the table in the bottom left to identify more specific recommendations. So what if it, if you need two trails, or if it's just a sidewalk on the other side, how wide the buffer should be between the trail and the road, and so on.
How do you know whether it's regional or not?
So that's the bolder line, the thicker line.
Well, I thought you said those, you just said, I thought that those were trails on one side or the other.
Hey,
Right,
Sandy, hold on, Nicole. Sandy, can you go to slide 11? We'll use an example, and then
Yeah, hopefully I'm not repeating
that-
or getting into what you talked about earlier. Sorry if I am.
right. So this, it helps to have a visual. So this is an outtake, and you can see the thicker purple lines and the thicker green lines and the thicker orange lines, as well as the thicker brown lines. So those are all regional connections. And the green and purple are definitely trails. And then you also see the thinner, purple and green and brown. Those are local trails or stream rally trails.
Is that in the legend somehow that the thicker are regional and the thinner are trails along roads? Or
Yeah, so it's the two stars. You can see it on the right. The two stars, regional local routes, are indicated by bolded and non-bolded line thickness, respectively. And this was handled with the subnote to kind of streamline the legend and not overwhelm it. But
okay, great. All right, that explains it. Thank you. Now, the other question I have is, it sounds like you're developing some priorities. We know that a lot of trails could be connected and could be fairly long if there were small pieces that were filled in. And one example is West Ox Road near Route 50, where it turns into a narrow sidewalk across a bridge. So to me, that would be a priority. It's good to hear you're developing the priorities. How far into that process are you, and is that information available to the public?
So we're just at the beginning of the prioritization. So we just kicked that off, mostly because we need to get to a more final draft of this map in order to look at potential prioritization. But we have reached out to stakeholders such as FAP to to request input, and we will share those priorities with the public at the end as well.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Bruce, I've muted you for right now. We're going to just let a few other people talk, and if you have more questions, you can we'll bring it back. Okay, next up is Wendy Henley. Your microphone is enabled. You can unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
I understand that this is a long-range project, and I applaud the effort to obtain community input. I have two questions that I'm looking for responses to. Are you all considering the road debris that hinders cyclists, scooter riders, etc.? will there be a concerted effort to keep the lanes free of debris? And this is in regards to the higher traffic lanes.
Yeah, that's a great point. So VDOT maintains the roads, so those type of obstacles or debris in the road can be reported through a VDOT portal, and we can share the link in the chat to that, where you can report any issues, and VDOT will come and take care of it.
Okay, but this for the higher for the lanes that will be in the higher density areas, that's a valid concern because road debris collects quickly. So that's just something to keep in the toolkit. And the other question I have is, will there be some sort of barrier between vehicles and the cyclists other than a painted line on the ground? And again, this is in regard to the higher traffic areas because, of course, we're looking at the safety of not only cyclists, but motorized scooters and skateboarders as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Nicole, go for it.
Yeah, so Sandy, if you could skip to the cycle track slide, so it's helpful to have a visual what the options are. So these are cycle tracks, or also known as protected or separated bike lanes, and those can be on street, as you can see on the left. So there was basically road space available, and it was converted to a space for cyclists, and an additional curbing and flex posts were added to keep vehicles out of the bikeway. And then on the right, you can see a similar design, but this is actually behind the curb at the sidewalk level. So that's an off-street cycle track, and it can be one way, so one basically bike lane in each direction on both sides, or a two-way cycle track, which can be on one side or both sides. And those are specifically designed to provide a very comfortable and safe bicycling experience, and also separate cyclists from pedestrians, which have their own parallel sidewalk.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I must have missed that earlier in the presentation. I appreciate you all.
Sure, thank you. Sorry, I skipped through these pretty quickly.
Okay. Benjamin Rhodes, your microphone's enabled.
Hey, thanks so much. So yeah, my name's Ben. I actually live in the city of Fairfax, but I work in Reston, both, very interesting communities, I'm sure, for Fairfax County Department of Transportation. So, working in Reston, we have a very unique, greenway kind of trail system that I don't see necessarily reflected in the map, and I would just hope that that trail system is accounted for when planning, on-street trails and neighborway trails potentially in Reston, and then also planning for connectivity throughout the rest of the county, and then the other thing I wanted to mention is just, the same thing essentially for the city of Fairfax. City of Fairfax is working on its Move Fairfax plan right now, essentially the same sort of long range on and off street trail and traffic safety plan as this initiative, and a bit behind, obviously, Fairfax County. And so, I just hope the transportation planners between the two jurisdictions will work together as these two plans kind of come through in tandem.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to turn to some of the questions in the chat real quick. So let me see here. Okay. This is a little bit long, so just bear with me. In a town hall meeting in McLean yesterday evening, Supervisor Bierman noted that while Fairfax owns the land, VDOT is responsible for the surface for many roads in Fairfax. Supervisor Bierman also expressed frustration with VDOT as a lot of times VDOT is not responsive to Fairfax needs, and it is difficult to get projects done. So the question is, are you coordinating this long-range plan with VDOT's planning to ensure that when an opportunity becomes available to work together to improve a road, a trail, Fairfax and VDOT can work together and get a project done expeditiously? Question mark. So.
Yeah, that's a great question. And we are coordinating, as I mentioned, on any sort of repaving efforts. And if VDOT has some sort of, project of their own come in, such as, the I-66 and I-495 expansions. So they came to us and we worked together on developing the trail alignment. But we also have coordination with VDOT on smaller projects. So we recently received some funding from the Board of Supervisors for small active transportation improvements. So those focus on crosswalk enhancements or new crosswalks, as well as filling in small sidewalk gaps. And we are working with VDOT on what they can do quickly as curb ramps and some minor signal modifications. And it expedites a project and keeps it at a lower cost if VDOT can do it, and we reimburse VDOT for their work. And that's also actually a coordination that we have with some of the towns in the county that either they implement it and we reimburse it, or vice versa.
Okay. Get to the chat. So here's a question. It's not quite related to plan, Nicole, so but it's a question they have about a facility that was built. Is there an appeal process? Question mark. We have new bike lanes here in Laurel Hill that has taken away all parking for a large section of our community. So it has ruined our lives and property values. A bike lane on one side would be sufficient. How do we get this looked at?
So I think that was a facility that was implemented through the repaving process, and it went through a public engagement effort just like this one, and received community positive community feedback. So it was implemented as proposed. So if you have any concerns or feedback, yeah, definitely please get in touch with us separately, and we can add our contact information into the chat box to discuss it with you offline.
Thank you. So question is, are developers required to install trails along the roads in their new developments?
So short answer is yes, if it's part of the countywide trails network. So any of the purple lines on the map for sure. If it's an orange line, it really depends on what is included in the special area plan. So sometimes it does include a specific trail recommendation, sometimes it does not. And particularly if the road will be is either already public or will become public in the future. If it's a completely private road and it will stay private, there's a little bit more leeway of what the developer can build there. But we are providing the facility selection toolkit on the map to help developers with their facility choices to ensure that the active transportation circulation serves the need of the community. And Mike may be able to fill in another detail or two since he's working on the development side.
Well, I'll just say we request it, and then usually through the entitlement process, they have to proffer to it. So it's a voluntary process, but they want the additional density. Usually we make the case of, well, if you want the additional density, then the facilities, schools, parks, infrastructure, roads, part of it need to kind of come along with it. So it's all part of that process, and the community is involved in that too. So let me see here. The next one is, okay, what's the anticipated timeline for special areas updating their trails, bikeways, maps?
Do you take that, Mike?
I'll take it. So as we have gone through several area plans now, there are currently several that are active. For example, Centerville has one, Lorton has one, Fairfax Center has one, Springfield is just starting, and Fair Lakes will be starting soon. So you can see there's kind of a plethora of larger plans that are active. As those plans become active, then we go ahead and look at the network, and then we start to fill in and kind of make recommendations for facilities using the guidance from what the toolkit and the maps are showing us now. So that's kind of the nice thing, is they use context and everything to kind of help put that in perspective. And so as those kind of active transportation facilities are kind of figured out and kind of work through the community process, then they are added to the plan after that fact. And this map, the larger active transportation and trails plan, will refer to the area guidance, and the area guidance will go ahead and have the recommendations. However, if an area plan is not updated yet, we can either default to either recent guidance in that area plan or use the active transportation and trails plan toolkit to help kind of figure out what facilities are appropriate for the particular area. So hopefully I got it right, Nicole. Okay, let's see here. I see there's a couple hands. Renee, I see your hand is raised. I'm not sure if you have a question. I'll allow your microphone and see if you have a question.
Yeah, I had a question, but somebody had
Okay.
lowered my hand, so I appreciate you taking the question. I also, like Bruce, unfortunately missed the presentation, so I'm anxious to go back and watch it, but it's been great to hear all the questions, and I appreciate your time in communicating all this. In looking at the map and looking at some of the slides I had just seen, it looked like the trails and stream valleys, the exact route might be determined later, but I guess I have the question of, as you might, certainly Nicole expects this question, the Cinderbed Road Bikeway has been a real problem with a trail going through a globally rare habitat, which wasn't discovered until afterwards, because that's just how the process works. And so we would love to be able to advocate for all of these projects, knowing that they don't have such significant environmental impacts. And so how is the process changing to avoid situations like that? And is there an opportunity to not just adjust realignments, because in this case, adjusting the realignment doesn't avoid the globally rare habitat really. Is there an option to not have that connection after discovery? Like, is there a process for that going forward for this map?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And some of it was definitely a learning opportunity for the county, and has very much informed the plan and how it's written, and the caveats you see on the map that are referring to the open space trails and the stream valley trails. So the when most of these trails are actually, if they get implemented, they get implemented usually by the county through funded projects or by the Park Authority. And the way the county assigns funding to projects is at a very high level in the beginning. So there's just like a very high level scope. It's unclear if it's feasible or not. And that's not just the open space trails, it's also facilities along roads, even road widenings. So they get funding assigned. And then with that funding, that's when we can start to study those areas. We have an entire section at FCDOT, and I'm sure the Park Authority has the same, which is just focused on pre-scoping efforts. So they will pay for topographic surveys, environmental surveys, and initial concept designs, feasibility studies, anything that is needed depending on the complexity before it moves forward into design. And there's definitely, it happens rather frequently that it turns out the project's not feasible. And then, it's being canceled, and then the project funding will just move to another project. So if you look at Transportation Priorities Plan, the most recent ones, you will probably see that multiple projects have been canceled because either they were not feasible or maybe they were not desired by the community after all. So things change. Some of the projects, including Cinderbed, was funded in 2014. A lot has happened since then. So, for example, some of the road widenings, like Rolling Road widening, was canceled or deferred because it was no longer a community priority. Similar to the Braddock Road widening was supposed to add another travel lane, and it ended up becoming just an active transportation project because the community priorities have changed. So again, this is a long-range, high-level plan. Nothing is set in stone, and definitely, you know, those more challenging corridors and areas will need to be studied more closely. And we just can't do that for the entire county as part of the high-level plan. It's just kind of an idea of, you know, that may be a good connection, but further review and study is definitely necessary.
Okay, thank you. All right, Bruce, your hand is up. Let me allow your microphone. Okay, you're unmuted.
Yeah, thanks. In the trails plan, I think most of the trails were designated on the side of the road. And I see that in this case, that's not the case, in that it would be decided at the time of development. That was the case with policy roads in the first bike plan. And as I recall, it didn't work very well. How are you going to be able to ensure that there's continuity in the trail without designating side of the road? And if a developer comes in, what's to keep them from saying, well, no, it should be on the other side of the road? Is this all up to staff? And before you answer, thank you for your answer in case my mic gets cut off.
Oh, sorry, just trying to help everyone get a shot.
No, I understand. All right, thanks.
Yeah, great question. So actually the current countywide trails plan in the comprehensive plan only designates a side of the road for the trail for half the districts. The other half, it's flexible. So it's really streamlining like one over the other. So instead of having different districts dealing with it differently, the entire plan just keeps it flexible. And because in truth is, you know, it may be on the plan on one side of the road, but when we come in with a capital project, particularly, we usually look at both sides to see where the facility is more constructible, like fewer impacts, fewer property, you know, like right away concerns, where are the utilities, what's the topography. Again, that's a level of detail that's very challenging to determine at, you know, this like 10,000 foot level we're working at right now. So it's better to say, okay, this is a route, but where the trail is going to be really depends on the context and at the time of implementation. And what are the existing facilities right now? There may already be a trail on one side and it's just a connecting piece. So we will try to keep it on that side. And that's the same for development. So again, this has been how we have planned trails since the 1970s. It has always been the case that some districts didn't have a site assigned, and it's usually first come, first in. So if a developer comes in and a trail is currently located along, you know, their side of the road, they're on the hook. If the trail is located on the other side, they're off the hook. If there's no trail at all anywhere, they're the first ones in. The other ones that have to start, basically, they pick the side because they're first in, and that has been working pretty well.
Okay. I don't see any new questions in the chat and no hands are raised. Sandy, can you go to the last slide, please? Oh, let me go 2 slides up. Sorry about that. All right, so again, this is just to remind everyone, the surveys are up and active. If you haven't taken it, please do so. Please tell your friends, neighbors, anybody. We love to hear from everybody as much as we can. The survey is open till Friday, September 19th. And then again, the project website, I'm sure that's how you kind of found out about today's meeting, but it is located at the bottom there. And these slides will be posted on the project website following the conclusion of tomorrow's presentation. So they'll probably be posted around Friday or Monday at the latest. The recording will also be posted probably around Monday as well. It needs to go through and kind of be posted and processed in order to be posted. So with that, I'm going to take one last opportunity, see if anybody has any questions or comments. Do not see anybody with hands raised. So I want to conclude the meeting by saying thank you to everyone for participating. Again, we have one more meeting tomorrow. Should you want to hear it again, we'll be at noon. So lunchtime, we'll go from 12 to 1. And then from there, we'll continue on. The draft timeline for this is to kind of hear from everybody. And then we'll look to see if, based on the comments we receive from the community, make any sort of changes to the map and to the toolkit. and then kind of take this hopefully to the Board of Supervisors for adoption in the spring of next year. So with that, thank you, everyone. I will conclude tonight's meeting and have a good evening.